coworker constantly ignores my work-from-home boundaries, bombards me with calls and texts, but mysteriously respects others' boundaries without issue. I work at a small company with about 10 employees because it is such a small team, and most people have been there for a long time, 10 plus years for most. It is a very relaxed environment, and unfortunately, this has bred some bad habits and toxicity into the culture. Nothing especially groundbreaking, and for the most part it was being ignored since most of the negativity was coming from one source: our main admin, Karen. This fall, an opportunity opened up for me to work exclusively from home, due to the nature of my particular position, and I jumped on it. I go into the main office about twice a month, and for the most part, it's been a dream. I am vastly more productive. Work hard to ensure that I maintain good work-from-home habits, and have found that my mental health has improved drastically. Since the transition, I have done everything I can think of to set clear expectations as far as when I am available. I have specific set hours when they can expect me to be at my desk. I use Google Hangouts away messages to say if I'm up from my desk for a quick break to stretch my legs, use the bathroom, etc., with a time I'll be back. I also always have my personal cell on me in case it's a rare emergency. I do most of my communication with clients and our team via email, but I do have a VoIP phone that dials out with the main office number, and I can be inter-office paged via this phone as well. Almost the whole team is great with this arrangement. With one exception, Karen cannot seem to respect these boundaries. She'll page me outside of my work hours, or regardless of whether I have an away message set, and if I don't get to my phone fast enough I can hear it elsewhere in the house, she'll call my cell. Usually for a very simple question that could have waited or could have been an email. If I point out that I set an away message, she'll say, "Sorry, I didn't see it." I have even paged her and told her I'll be unavailable for an hour and she'll agree pleasantly, and then turn around and page me 15 minutes later, followed by the usual call to my cell if I don't pick up. I will also often come back to see that she's IM'd me in an effort to get my attention, as well. When I politely point out that I had set an away message was away for a short time, this question could have been an email, etc., Karen will often reply with, "Well, I didn't think it was a big deal since you're already there." Sucks. My position does have a certain degree of needing to be on call. If certain things happen with my projects at any time of day, I do need to act. But Karen's questions are rarely about that so much as spell checking and nitpicking coworkers' work, which is another problem she has, and one of the chief reasons I leaped at this opportunity to keep my job but not work in that office. I should note that working from home is a perk offered to everyone as an as-needed thing. And there is one other employee who works from home full-time, I asked him, and he says that he has not experienced this level of intrusion at all. And then when he says he's busy, Karen leaves him alone. No away messages needed. Meanwhile, when I say I'm busy, Karen says, "Oh, I know, we all are," and continues with her question behavior. What can I do differently to enforce these boundaries? I have stopped running to the phone if I've communicated that I'm away, and I hear a page or IM, but that doesn't stop the inevitable tide of calls and texts to my cell phone, or sometimes she'll just page and page and page until I get sick of hearing it and answer. Even though I'm taking a break, I pride myself on being just as available now as if I were in the main office. But at this point, I'm being forced into being much more available at home than I ever was when I worked in that building. How do I keep from turning my work-at-home situation into, "Ha ha ha, actually, I just live at work now"? P.S. I had this open as a draft. Got up to refill my coffee after setting a "back at 10:30" away message, yes, with the all caps. And what do I hear from my kitchen but a page and a, "Hello? Hello?" I don't know if I can mute it. I can turn it down so I can't hear it elsewhere in the house, and I have. But then I get bombarded with texts and passive-aggressive comments when I come back to my computer. Right now, I have it at a volume where I can hear it if I'm up, but it's not startlingly loud if I'm sitting at my desk either. I suppose I'm also worried about drawing the boundary too firmly and seeming unavailable to my colleagues who aren't Karen, you know? I can definitely see the value in being able to communicate within the office quickly, and it definitely does make working from home easier, but there have been plenty of times when I've tried to page a colleague, can't get a hold of them in that moment, and either make a note to try back later or write an email if it's urgent, and move on. That's the overall staff's approach, regardless of whether working remote or in the brick-and-mortar building. It's just Karen who seems to think that since I literally live at my office, I should be able to respond instantaneously to the pages and IMs. Update 1. First of all, thank you so much for publishing my letter. Your advice, along with the commentariat, was perfect. I keep my phone super quiet now, and don't jump when she calls. I also think that a lot of the commenters picked up on the fact that I was trying to prove I was working just as effectively from home and not doing anything helpful with my minute-based away messages. I was all happy to let this go and move on with my life. But we actually had a fairly bizarre outside incident happen the other day, and Karen's boundary pushing is actually a bow, to get her in trouble with someone besides me. As I mentioned before, we are a small, family-owned company. Very sadly, our owner suffered a stroke and passed away last week. The owner's son, Norman, is our CEO, so the status quo is remaining relatively the same, but we're all pretty sad. Norman has missed a few days of work due to the loss, but we're plodding along, business-wise. However, at the funeral this week, apparently Karen decided to bring some contracts that needed to be discussed and signed off on, and decided it would be a good idea to ask Norman to sign these documents while he was meeting with the other pallbearers, while they were all gathered around his father's casket. All of us from the office saw this happen, and frankly, none of us knew what to say. It was so surreal. Fortunately, Norman just shut her down with a firm, "This is really not a good time," which is much more diplomatic than what I think I might have said in that situation. I suspect Karen will be spoken to about this, since Norman is aware of my complaints for Karen as well, and I'm not the only one who's had issues with her boundary stomping in the past. And I might have a pretty strong ally moving forward. Now, update 2, I just want to give everyone a wee update to the update. To cut to the chase. Karen wasn't fired. However, this is horrible and gossipy, but I am friends with the guy who has the office next door to Karen in the brick-and-mortar building. And he mentioned that our CEO, Norman, came into the office. He has been absent lately due to stuff with his dad's death. Norman had an hour-long closed-door meeting in Karen's office. The walls in that building are pretty thin, but my friend said they didn't need to be. Norman apparently got fairly animated friends' words about being approached to sign things at his dad's funeral, and then brought up that this isn't the first time this has been an issue. My friend didn't elaborate, just said that my complaints, among all the others, had been brought up, and then he decided he didn't want to be essentially caught with his ear to the door when Norman left. And he found a project elsewhere in the building. Karen went home for the rest of the day after this talking to, and that was on Tuesday, when she came back in on Wednesday. My friend said that she's stuck mostly to herself and is almost hiding? People are coming to her for things rather than vice versa, and she hasn't paged anyone. Not just me, but anyone. I really don't think anyone is missing it. I think she is embarrassed, probably mostly by her behavior at the funeral, and is now laying low. I'm hopeful that this will be a wake-up call to her, and that she'll understand that her need to get work done doesn't trump everything. My friend with the neighboring office also offered that he thinks Karen isn't very happy at home, and that, with our grand boss dying, she was probably trying to really sublimate herself in work and get through it. I can be sympathetic to that, even if I think bringing contracts to a funeral is wildly inappropriate. Anyway, cheers. Thanks for all your validation and outrage on my Norman's behalf. You guys are all great, especially you, Allison.